Hello Year 4, welcome to another Humanities lesson. I hope you're all doing well and staying safe. Now I want you to get your pencils and your notebooks out and write down the long date, Monday the 1st of June 2020, and the LI to describe a range of foods eaten by the Maya and Aztec people and why certain foods were particularly significant. Well done everyone. Maya foods. Maize, or corn, was the main food of the Maya people and made up to 80% of their diet. Examples of other foods eaten include avocado, cassava, chili peppers, cacao, honey, jicama, maize, papaya, pumpkins, squash, sweet potato, and tomatoes. So of course we can access all of these foods in this modern age, but back then people in Europe were not able to access many of these foods. They were known to be exotic foods. So this was a food eaten by the Maya people, and they would plant beans next to the maize so that the vines would wrap around the growing maize stalks. And another fact is that the Maya people ate out of bowls made of pottery. Maize. Maize was a very important crop and formed up to 80% of their diet. To plant the maize, holes would be made in the soil with a sharp-bladed wooden digging stick called a dibble. My turn, dibble, your turn, dibble. The soil was very dry, and if the May rains didn't come, a whole year's crop would be lost. For thousands of years, the Maya worshipped the maize god. They believed that the first humans were made by the gods from maize dough. Because of this, once suffering from severe illness, they would eat nothing but corn. Can you imagine eating nothing but corn? I think we would get a bit bored of eating the same food over again. But because they really believed in this, they would do this so that it would prevent them from suffering from these illnesses. That's what they believed. And Maya farmers would plant maize wherever they could. Maize is more commonly known as corn. So what we know as corn or sweet corn is also known as maize. That's one food that was particularly significant to the Mayas. Now take a look at this picture. What do you think this picture is? These are cacao beans from the cacao fruit tree. Now, did you know that this bar of chocolate in general, is actually made from cacao beans? Now, we all love chocolate, but many of us may not know where it actually comes from. Now, on what occasions do you eat chocolate? Pause and have a think. So, special occasions, celebrations, birthdays. I know that when there were birthdays in our class, many of the pupils brought chocolate in for all of us to share. Or when you're feeling sad, some people when they're feeling sad, they like to eat chocolate to make themselves feel better. Now, why do you eat chocolate? I think this is a very simple answer, because it's delicious, tasty. Did you come up with anything else? Write it down. Now, cacao trees sprout cacao pods directly from their trunks. The pods are then opened to reveal the cacao beans inside. So the picture that we saw, if you open it up, you'll find some cacao beans. The Maya were using these beans to make a chocolatey drink from as far back as the 4th century AD. However, it was not the sweet chocolatey flavor we crave today, but a more bitter tasting version, often laced with chili or vanilla and other spices. So now when you have chocolate, it's sweet because of the sugar. Now they didn't have sugar, the Mayas didn't have any sugar canes, so instead their drink was much more bitter, and they mixed it with chili and vanilla and other spices. So it wasn't like the chocolate that we have in the modern times. The drink was enjoyed by the rich and noble members of society, and the cacao beans were highly valued. Now, do you remember what we mean when we say noble people? Pause and have a think. So noble people were the high-ranking members of society, so they were the wealthy people, so if you remember that we went through the feudal pyramid system, the noble members were second to the king, so they were just underneath the king. And in general, noble people just means members that are respected in society and high in society. And they were even used as a form of currency later on in the Maya history. And the Maya word for chocolate is cacao. And the Maya also used chocolate in religious ceremonies, and they also mixed them with herbs to make medicines. So we're going to be learning more about what we mean when we say that they were used as a form of currency. Neighboring civilizations established trade with the Mayans for the precious cocoa beans. From this, the beans eventually became a form of currency for the Mayans. So we've been learning all about money in our maths lessons, and we know that we use coins and notes as a form of currency for buying something or exchanging services. But the Mayans, instead of using coins as money, they traded items such as maize, so corn, we know how important corn was to them, cocoa beans, and tobacco. This is how precious the cocoa beans were. The drink was also thought to have the power to alter the brain, so alter means to change the chemicals of the brain, and open the mind to the spirit world. The festival honoring Cacao, the Mayan cocoa god, was an annual event. Annual means it was a yearly event that included offerings of cocoa beans, blood sacrifices, and ritual dancing. Cocoa beans also played an important role during Mayan wedding ceremonies and births. A mixture of crushed cocoa beans combined with crushed corn gruel was served in a ceremonial clay jug to be used during the wedding. And they also believed that chocolate had healing powers. And so that's why they use it to cure or treat a wide range of ailments, like sickness, from asthma to angina, cancer and anemia, to fatigue means when you're really tired, headaches, fever and laryngitis. And over here you can just see from the codex, there's some pictures here of how it was used for medicinal use. Cacao is the Mayan goddess of the cacao tree and chocolate that is made from the fruit of that tree. So take a look at the pictures over here. The history of chocolate. The history of chocolate begins in Mesoamerica, now Central America and Mexico, where it's believed the ancient Olmec civilization first cultivated cacao beans as early as 1750 BC. The Olmecs used the cacao plant for religious rituals and medicinal purposes. However, the first evidence of cocoa as a drink comes from the Mayan people. Mayan chocolate was very different than the chocolate we know today. It was a liquid made from crushed cocoa beans, chili peppers, and water. They would dry, grind, and mix the beans with water, and it was very bitter. As previously mentioned, there was no sugar in Central America. It was when the cocoa beans were introduced to Europe that we started adding sugar to it. They poured the liquid from one cup to another until a frothy foam appeared on top. So now let's move on to the Aztecs. When the Aztecs conquered the Maya, they were introduced to cacao beans and developed their own appreciation for it. The Mayans and Aztecs believed that chocolate was a gift from the gods, and cacao beans were even more valuable than gold. The Aztec word for chocolate was chocolate, and some believe that chocolate comes from the Aztec word chocri, which means warm. The Aztec loved cold chocolate drinks, unlike the Maya who preferred their drink warm. So Aztec cold, Maya warm. Remember that? But in the far more rigid Aztec communities, only special individuals like rulers, priests, great warriors, and leading merchants and other honored guests were officially allowed to access this beverage. And the Aztec valued cacao as we said, even above silver and gold, and believed wisdom and power came from consuming it. So from drinking it, they believed that they would get wisdom and power. Now, because let's move on. So as the Aztec people did not grow their own cocoa beans, they had to trade for the beans. So because they didn't grow their own beans, this is one of the reasons why only certain members of their society were able to access their drinks, as previously mentioned. And when the Aztecs conquered the Mayans, they forced the Mayans to pay high taxes to them in the form of cocoa beans. Now, according to the Aztec legend, Quetzalcoatl, the Aztec god, we remember in our lesson about gods, we learnt about this god, the Aztec god of vegetation. He came to earth with a cocoa tree and taught the mortals, so the humans, how to cultivate cocoa, how to grow this, and make a drink out of its beans. This made the other gods furious, and they threw him out of paradise for sharing the sacred drink with humans. So the Aztecs believed that the cocoa beans were so sacred and came from the gods. Aztec warriors also drank this drink before going into battle because they thought it would give them increased strength and courage. And they had a yearly cocoa festival held at their capital, Tenochtitlan, that included the sacrifice of a warrior from an enemy tribe as a way to honor the god who gifted mortals with the cocoa bean. So we can see that cocoa beans were very precious to the Mayan people and to the Aztecs. Over here is a scene for the mid-16th century which depicts an indigenous Mexican preparing the chocolate. So you can pause and take a look at this scene. Now, your task. So can you use your knowledge about the significance of chocolate to the Maya people to create a poster containing key facts? You can use this template over here, or it'll be on the school online learning platform website, or you can come up with your own poster. So remember the key facts. Why was chocolate significant to the Maya people? There were several reasons. So think about what we mentioned about the gods, and think about the ceremonies that use these cocoa beans and the drink. And I want you to include all of that over here. And remember what we mentioned about currency as well. So don't forget to mention all of that in your poster, key facts. And you can either do this task, significance of chocolate to the Maya people, and when you've done that, you can also do one for the Aztec people. So you can choose which one you want to do. And then once you've done that, purple pen activity, list the foods which made up the diet of the Maya people. So remember there was all of the foods we mentioned in the first slide, and remember corn, it had another name and why that was significant to the Maya people. So list all of that. And how was the way the Maya and Aztec drank the cocoa beans different? So remember what we said about warm and cold, who drank which one? And then write some chocolate facts related to the Aztec people. So we have all of these activities to do, the posters, one about Maya chocolate and the significance to the Maya people, and you can do one about its significance to the Aztec people and your purple pen activity. And once you're done, you can send your work over to year4@grange.harrow.sch.uk. Well done, everyone.